err on the side of caution and not do the full screen just in case something were to happen.
Is this record the audio then?
Yeah, this is recording audio as well. Hi everybody, this is Nate Schlein. I'm a sales engineer, and we got a whole team here. Happy to show you Box today. I'm gonna skip the all files and folders piece for them. And so for those tuning in, we're right at a point where we're just talking about the basic features that you'll see in Box when you log in for the first time. Talking about just the simplicity and security associated with it. Now, one thing to keep in mind also for those in the room, when it comes down to that simplicity, search is key. And I know that was an item that we should discuss a little bit more in depth, but from just a basic level, we have a full text search functionality. So we're indexing the first 10,000 characters of every file that you put in Box. So that way, if you have a presentation and you can't remember the file or folder name, you can search for it in many different ways, not just by the context, but we have metadata that you can associate to specific files, as well as being able to create additional filters, such as modified date, file type, and so forth. And as I said, we'll go a little bit deeper into that. But yeah, let's go ahead and actually hop in to a specific folder structure here, and really kind of thinking a little bit more about how there could be different ways you all could be using Box. Obviously, there's the whole concept of a file server replacement, but I think what stood out to me was the need to just get content quickly to those who need it and let them be able to do what they need to do, and when internet allows them to, respond back. And this use case in particular, when dealing with certain crises, is something that I've been working on a lot. Actually, Team Rubicon is a nonprofit organization. They gave me a few stickers, so it's on my water bottle. But we've been working really closely with them to find a way to, and for those who aren't familiar, they do disaster recovery. They pair former military members with first responders and go straight to the scenes where there are crises. And what we've been doing with them is helping them find a way to reach their actual employees, which is only about 35 actual employees. But then they have a layer of volunteers that brings them to around 400 that are practically employees and just doing the work. And then there's 30,000 people on top of that who are down there, on the ground floor doing the dirty work. And we're finding different ways to get them that information really quickly, and making sure that in cases where they need to just be able to see their mission for the day, just be able to browse a PDF on their tablet, that's something that's possible. So you'll see here as we go through this folder structure, really all that's significant in this case here is our permission structure. I want to make sure we explain that. So we work with what we call waterfall permissioning. And really what this is that whatever level a user becomes invited in at, and here Tom has been invited in as an editor at this level, that user will have the same level of access cascaded down to all of the subsequent subfolders. So because Tom has access at this root level, this means he's going to naturally have access to all of these. So oftentimes we see, and it's kind of like a 60-40 split. We were just talking with another customer about managing this and maybe giving ownership to IT. Some prefer at this root level to have that be on the IT side. Some prefer to give that to maybe a team lead, project lead as well. So that's obviously something that we can talk about a little bit later. But as you see, you'll drill down into a specific folder, and now you'll see that, for example, Rory's been invited here at this next level. Now, Rory is now seeing just the Nepal earthquake folder when he logs into Box.com. He has no idea that there's a greater folder for crisis management, that the other folders adjacent to them even exist. Is that clear? Because that's kind of that's a real big point. Cool. Great.
Can you add just people as groups?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have a group comment.
Yeah, and so when it comes to inviting in users, though, it can be done either one by one. If you have some sort of Active Directory LDAP system in place, you can mirror those groups over to Box.
Can you create groups within Box?
And you can create groups within Box as well to help with that bulk permissioning.
Because there's a lot of ad hoc groups.
Yeah, and that's fine. We support it. Yeah, great. And so you'll see here actually, because of that waterfall permission structure, and why I wanted to make sure it was clear to you all, is that now you'll also see that we've embedded an external facing folder here at the bottom. And this is just a really easy way to do business externally as well. Make sure that there's an area of secure internal collaboration, and then just kind of following that same permission structure. Once we hop down to that external facing folder, you can invite in perhaps a media team or whomever needs access to the content.
Does external mean also external to the organization?
External to the organization. Sorry, yeah. That's just a nice way. I mean, it doesn't have to be done that way, but it's a good way to make sure you're keeping everything internally and safe. So when it actually comes to working in and inviting users, I mean, I think that's a great point, Peter, for us to kind of spend some time here. So this is the granularity that we provide each user when it comes to inviting in other members to access content. So there's a lot of different options here. It's different than probably what you've seen in some other cloud providers. But what we're hoping to do is make sure that you get that control necessary to, with the most sensitive content, keeping it, in the hands of those who need to be able to do things like editing. And in some cases, you can just make them a previewer, as you'll see here, where they have just the ability to preview those files.
Does that mean read?
It means just read directly out of the browser. They can't download it.
Right.
So it becomes real safe, especially like on a you can imagine on a device. And I mean, I'm sure there's so many different use cases for you also. I mean, we don't need to spend too much time discussing that now, but kind of just keep in mind that this is to give you that flexibility because we understand there's a lot of different use cases that you'd be working with, a lot of different needs. So hopefully we can support that. Any questions, though, about how our permission structure works or about any of these different levels that we're offering?
When, suppose somebody gives me a certain level, not co-owner access, but some other level of access there.
Sure.
Can I then give access to anybody else? I mean, at lower levels below mine?
Yeah, great question. So that would actually, the only people that can invite people are the people who can edit in some capacity. So you'll see there's three different options of editors. Mm-hmm. The viewer uploader is actually one that's probably more common than any of the others because you can't delete. So you got to think about that, kind of when it's at scale, the beauty of not having to worry every day about, that end user error of where did that file go. The organization, I'm trying to think of the name. Donors Choose is an organization that recently standardized on Box's like a file server replacement, knocked out all their file servers. And this is the type of, granularity that you need to be nice. Not everyone's the most tech savvy. And it's a nice way to kind of take care of some of those concerns there. So only viewer, uploader, and above in this scenario would be able to invite in any other users. And you
could invite people in at levels lower than you.
Correct. And you actually can, at a folder-specific level, say, hey, I only want owners and co-owners to be able to invite people into a folder. So you can be more restrictive if you need to be. Great. And to your point, Peter, yeah, not only can you invite in an individual, you can invite in a group. I'm trying to think what maybe the marketing. I got a marketing team group here, and just like that, they'll be added into this folder only, and then the folders that go below that. And so, once you're able to invite in all these users and kind of start that collaborative process, the next step is to start working on files. So it seems like Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, are those being used pretty heavily? Okay, great. So let's start there.
Gazillion files.
Yeah. Well, then let's start with Google Docs because I really like the story here. I think it's really cool that somehow, in the grand scheme of things, the giants of Microsoft and Google, who are our competitors, are also our partners. It's just kind of interesting. It's the new wave of enterprise software in itself, but also I think speaks to the way that Google is seeing their business, the way Box sees ours as well. But you'll see here, this is just a Google Doc that we're previewing directly out of the web browser. There was a question listed here just for those keeping score at home that was kind of how many file types can we preview versus how many can't be rendered on Box. And so we can preview over 120 different file types on Box. We can give you a list if you need to see that. But when it comes to storage, you can put whatever you'd like to. And so this is just one option here of a file you can preview, and you'll see that it's all open within the web browser. So for security purposes, you don't need to allow someone to download. But also, if you got 12,000 files and you don't know which one is necessarily the one you want to look at, you don't have to download them all. Do you have to download them to look at them today in the library? Yeah. So even just little things like that are going to start saving you time minute by minute, which is hopefully gets you all there to the goal faster. But once great to be able to look at it, but really what's important is being able to actually do something about the files that are being put on there. So once the internet allows, this will connect me, hopefully, to the Google spreadsheet. And once it does, why don't we try this again?
So this connection that you're trying to get working out would be essentially the same, how should I put it, connection to that document as you would get in Google Sheets.
Yes, and I don't know. Yeah, I'm not too sure why. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. So now you're in your Google environment, and you can do everything that you would with a Google Doc. You can I'm going to go ahead and make a change just so you'll see what it all looks like.
Is the document living in Drive or Box?
Great question. So and it's kind of, I mean, in the simplest form, it's everything's going to live in Box. It's going to be stored in Box in our secure repository. For a moment, when you open up the Google Sheet in this scenario to make changes to it, it temporarily lives in Google as well. So if you were to look at the audit trail for Google Drive, it shows that it gets uploaded, then deleted, as soon as you close the file.
Oh, as soon as you close it, so it's only in Google while.
Very briefly, just for you to allow for now collaborative editing. So now a bunch of people can hop into this folder together, work on their documents in the same way that they've done so in Google. Just now, the beauty of this is for those that are, I guess, maybe I should phrase this again and maybe ask you all as a question. Is there some sort of rhyme or reason for when it's a Google Doc versus a Word doc, or is that sort of just whatever the preference is to the...
It's user specific.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of this is now you can house it all in one place. So yeah.
What about you got a gazillion files in Drive now?
Mm-hmm.
In order to look at them via Box, you actually migrate them.
You'd migrate the content to Box, and so then it's an end user training piece. And
are there scripts for doing that, or is it is it an end user task or an IT task? Is it a person? Is it a people task, or is it a?
Well, we do have an open API that if we can get that content, export that content from Google, we can import it into Box. I don't think there's anything written today that scripts it for you, but it should be doable.
Yeah. We have different services too that can help you migrate content over. If you guys don't want to do it on your own, or if you want Box to do it for you, there's different options you can have.
Yeah. From the partnership standpoint, the post-sale side is really where the true value, I think, really comes in, where we have a customer success manager that's dedicated to your account. They're the person that you call up not only with questions about how to use Box best, but they are the ones to educate your users, be in touch with you as new features come out, things like that, really to make sure that you're using the account the way you should, and that's actually a metric that they're checked on is what is the life of the account looking like. And so they stay with you the entire time that you're on Box. So that's just kind of a side note there. But you'll see once you close this file, automatically. Whoa, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Automatically, it saves it back to Box. A new version is available for you, and then once that previews, it's a nice piece to it. It just will now show you the new version. But what's great here is that now we're tracking versions directly through Box instead, where we have taken a real enterprise approach to this, where we're stacking versions one by one, all based and time stamped off of who's done it most recently. So as long as you're authenticated into Box, we're going to keep track of who that user is, who made that change, and when they've done so. So in those collaborative scenarios, and in your case where it doesn't sound, this is a big office, but most of the people are not in this office. You're able to have a real collaborative workspace and understand who's making changes when. Hopefully also cutting you down on some emails back and forth. I'm sure versions just take up a lot of room in your inbox. So
if I want to go back to not the current version, but the one 2 days ago, I can get back in and see that and work with it if I need to?
Yeah, so watch this. It's as simple as pressing make current, and now it's the new version. So the secret is on the back end, because we offer unlimited storage, we treat each version as a separate file, which lets us be pretty nimble on how quickly we can revert back and move forward and so forth.
And if you don't want it to be the current version, then you can just download it and then look at it that way.
Okay, so just in terms of counting versions, so if I'm working on a document and I'm working on it and I make one change every minute for an hour, are there now 60 versions there, or just one because I'm the only one changing?
No, great question. As long as you're pressing save, it's going to save back to Box.
As long as I'm pressing save.
Right. So if you're just kind of hanging out there, nothing's going to happen. But as soon as you press that button,
save
that
is a version.
That calls it back to go to Box. And thank you for reminding me. I think another piece on the list was kind of just about what happens when there's a lot of people working on files together. So a few things, obviously, Google Docs, feel free, as many people as you need, or as many as that Google supports. When it comes to working on, let's say, a Microsoft file, and you want to be able to just be able to work on it, maybe you're all working from the desktop, for example. There's an option for you to actually just lock that file, and there's a few different ways to do so. Easiest of which would be to just click lock file, and in this case, you can either prevent others from downloading it, so take kind of a proactive approach to it, and even kind of set a time frame. So maybe you're about to hop on a plane, and you can, the trip to Portland was about 2 hours, and you can lock it in that way. And what I love here is that it actually shows the picture of the user too. So get a good one up there because people will see it frequently. But actually, I might as well also show you all what this looks like, because another thing that I wanted to make sure we hit on was what this looks like from the desktop, because that seems to be kind of huge. So you'll see here, I mean, I wish it looked cooler, but it looks like you're using your desktop. BoxSync is just a folder that resides on your desktop. And what we offer is what we call our selective sync, so that if you have a terabyte, 10 terabytes of data that's stored in Box, you don't have to have that all trickle down to a user's computer, taking up bandwidth and a lot of. I mean, I saw that you had to sign in with a username and password to get some bandwidth in here, so I can only imagine what it's like, back outside of the United States. So choosing the folders that you'd like to have synced down to the desktop, and then from there, you'll see that we actually go through that same folder structure, and all the information that resides right here is simultaneously being shown here. And even when a file's locked, you'll know that the file's locked here. I don't think it shows my picture, unfortunately. But you can unlock the file from here. You can view the file from here and make changes locally to your desktop. And you can even create and generate links that you can share out. So a lot can be done from the Box desktop in itself. But with that being said, I mean, I think it seems like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of this is just being able to get to that information, correct? Or is there a lot of back and forth on a day-to-day basis with the files that would be kind of living in some of these more remote locations?
Not sure I understand.
Is it more like the people who are in the most remote locations are just viewing some content as it comes in that's getting pushed from like headquarters, or are they actively collaborating on information to and from those two locations?
It's back and forth.
Okay.
Especially for things like proposal development. So there could be someone locally in the field who's working with a potential donor, and then they're sending the file over here to be reviewed by program officers and technical experts here, and then it's going back to the country director.
And most of them is probably one of the most complicated ways we share files, because that can include headquarters people, people in the field, and consultants who are from a sort of an electronic perspective outside of Mercy Corps.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm working right now with an organization called the International Institute of Education, and are you guys familiar with them at all? Yeah, so a global organization, and they're in the process right now of kind of testing the limits of Box, in that they have they have obviously their internal staff. They have people that are just working with applicants as they're determining whether or not they can get fellowships. Then they have to get to the people who are applying for these fellowships. So it's kind of a similar process where all around the world there's people with so many different user stories and identities all trying to get information into one place. So those are the stories we love to hear.
So is it when I'm online on the web version or the cloud version, is that where I establish which folders or files I want to sync to my desktop?
Yeah, exactly.
So if I've just got a folder with 2 files in it that I've synced, and then somebody changes up on the cloud version, what gets synced back then to my desktop?
The change
just
does
just the changes, or a whole new version of the file?
Oh, I see what you're asking. Is it just the delta of it, or it would be the entire file? Yeah.
So will you be talking about really low bandwidth, really bad connectivity?
Sure. I mean, we can talk about it now.
Yeah, I don't want to.
No, sure. So I mean, there's the thing is,
that's a big deal.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. So
it's related to sync. So.
Well, talk to me about it. I guess can we get some general questions or concerns?
Well, I mean, we've got in many of our field locations, or some of them anyway, we've got countries that don't have 24-hour electricity, so just offline. We've got places where when you're online, the connection speed is pretty low. So it's those two things and combinations thereof. That
Sure.
what we're looking at.
So I think the first piece to it is that, I mean, we are really an international global organization in that we've actually created our own accelerator nodes that are located throughout the world. So actually, there's in fact an algorithm that is honestly over my head, but there's an algorithm that's been determined to figure out what's the fastest path to uploading a file from anywhere. So there's going to be 3 options every time. There's going to be the box option, which is this accelerator that we've created to push uploads a little bit faster. There's the traditional path of the internet, which, believe it or not, sometimes is fastest. And then we also work with Akamai, and they have their own edge nodes that we can trip it that way as well. So there's always an option, that will be determined, instantaneously for you to determine the route. So that is obviously a piece to it. I mean, when there's no internet connection or very limited, I mean, that's obviously going to be a challenge with any cloud product in itself. That's where sync comes in very handy. And I mean, very similar to that conversation I've had with Team Rubicon when they're going to some of the same places, in fact. And it's a combination of utilizing sync, understanding when it's appropriate to push back information up. And I mean, it's really up to you how you'd like to leverage it. There's no minimum threshold of internet speed for our connectivity that is necessary for Box, but that connection the experience is going to be dependent on connection. That makes sense. I mean, there's really not too much that we can do there other than help you accelerate that path up and give you an option to keep it down on the desktop and kind of wait for some better service.
Okay, so if you have a slow speed and you're trying to upload or download something, and in the middle of that download, which is taking a while because your speed is slow, the electricity goes off.
Interesting, yeah.
Okay, then what happens? I mean, is half the file still there, or do we need to start over again?
In that case, you would need to you're talking about resumable uploads, downloads. Thinking from an upload perspective, I can tell you now that would have to restart it. From a download perspective, I think I need to get back to you because I wonder if that's a little bit different.
My advice for that is, from what I've seen, is just if you know you're going to be in a spotty location, there's one folder in particular that you know you're going to be working on a lot, you should just have it synced to your desktop just to ensure that no matter what, if there is spotty internet, then you'll be able to access it that way. And that goes the same with like your mobile device. If you need to access it on your phone, you can sync it on your phone. You don't have to have internet access.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me personally, I don't use sync except for certain folders that I know I'm working on, like an active project, just in case. Because ironically, I live in San Francisco, but I live in an area where there isn't great internet connectivity. So sometimes I have to use sync. So for active projects, I would advise doing that.
Another thing that now that I'm thinking of it, we see pretty frequently is we are a fully cloud solution, but we understand that there's sometimes needs to have stuff on premise. So, for example, Synology, you might want to write, if anyone has any interest, might write it down. Synology is a NAS storage provider. So it's not like a crazy intense server that you'd be standing up and worrying about maintenance, but we actually integrate with them directly. So in those cases, you can, if you're really, really concerned that internet's going to be so terrible that maybe it's not even viable, just connect to Synology. I mean, we're happy to leverage partners as well from that perspective and access it from Synology's on-premise solution.
So then instead of being a desktop sync or a device sync, it's a server sync. It's
a server sync in that state. And actually, so that's the only NAS provider that we have a direct integration with. I mean, there's ways to do it. We don't recommend it, but with Synology we do. So definitely look into that if that's a major concern in some of those locations. In interest of time, I want to make sure we can cover as much as we can. But any other questions related to bandwidth, low latency, speed?
So in your scenario, you load up the folders on your desktop that you want to sync because you're traveling. I come back, I don't really need to sync those folders anymore, so I go to the web version that controls the syncing and turn it off, and then those files are removed from my desktop?
Yep.
Yep, so you can sync, unsync as much as you want, yeah.
Okay, just turn it on, turn it off,
Yep.
when you turn it off, it disappears from
Yep, and it's always on the folder level, so you're only going to be syncing or unsyncing the folder.
So I'm just kind of hopping into some of these things that I feel like we've covered. Stop me if you think we haven't, but
Pretty much.
permissions, notifications we haven't touched on, creating opening.
Can you set notifications?
Yes, and I'll show you that
You
in a
don't have
moment.
to show us.
Okay, there's
Just-
But
yes.
you can.
there's a common and task functionality, real time. If you use a task, what we're doing is actually I can show you, it's right here. What we're doing with the task is making it so that we actually you can assign a date to it. So once again, for companies that are working in this, or any group of people working in dispersed locations, this will help you just kind of have a lightweight project management built into that. So in these proposals that you're working with, I think that's where it becomes pretty handy. It's the same idea with the International Institute of Education. They're using that because of the real-time notification rather than batch notification. We can give you a notification, but it comes in a batch upon upload, so that might take a little time. This is like, boom, instantaneously you get an email as well as a notification on Box. And then, hey, you put this for the end of the month. As it comes closer and closer to the deadline, we send automatic notifications to kind of nudge them politely. But then again, you can send notifications yourself as the individual who's assigned the task.
Within Box or via email?
Within Box.
Yeah, but within Box, but it goes out, the notification
Via email as well as Box. So you can't avoid
And I
us.
can either,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very light kind of project management collaboration.
Yeah.
tool. Nothing, it's
and I
not
can
too aggressive, very
say,
simple.
I can set up a document where I want to be notified when it's been changed.
So you say that again?
I'm editor,
Mm-hmm.
I'm monitoring a file, and I can set up a notification for me to be notified when anyone changes that. Okay.
Yeah. Great. Okay. What would be, I think, really helpful is for us to handle search metadata and then also show embed and what it kind of just looks like
One
in general.
question on mobile access is do you have responsive design on the screens when you're doing it from a tablet or a smartphone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
That's
yeah.
good enough. Go to
Okay.
search.
Yeah, so search. I know, it's a lot to crunch into an hour. So sorry if I'm going too fast. Sorry for those on the computer as well.
You don't have to apologize for our question.
Yeah. All right, so now we're working on a PDF. By the way, this is a pretty big PDF here. But what we're realizing is that you got a lot of information, you put it on Box, and I'm sure there's going to be 100 things named something relatively similar, unless you got the best nomenclature for thousands and thousands of documents. So we provide metadata. For those who aren't as familiar with what metadata is,
We're familiar.
okay. So we have options for creating templates. So you
Especially
can
those guys.
Yeah.
That's what they
Okay.
live and die on that.
Yeah, I want to hear about the templates and
Sure.
what metadata sources you can use and
Sure.
what custom things you can use and stuff.
Sure. So you can create these templates.
Custom down there.
Yeah, you can create these templates just directly out of Box. So now from here, depending on really what you need, obviously for different folders, you're going to want to have different types of metadata for different types of files and so forth. So this is just something that I've done here, and you'll see you can do things like create drop-down menus, have a nice handy calendar for you as well, associate numbers specifically with it, or even just having an open text field.
Okay, and so
You
for
said
an
aha, that's-
asset ID, you can create custom numbers
Yeah.
for other purposes.
Exactly.
And then you can add attributes too.
Exactly. And so this is the other thing that's really nice is, we aim to be as end user friendly as possible, right? So if, for example, I want to be able to just find this file, I can add something. I can add something to it here, and then that becomes searchable. Now, actually, interesting point there that you bring up there. So I'm going to go ahead and X out of this, and I'll show you what it looks like to search. Actually, I want to know what the name of that ID was. That's probably a cool way to do it. 5342. So I type in 5342, and what's happening here, it says no match found, because first what we're doing to just speed things up is going by file and folder name. Once we press search, now it gets a little bit more interesting. I wish there was more things with that 5342 in there to show you kind of how we can filter it better, but what you'll see is obviously the metadata is going to show up automatically, but look at all these additional filters on the side. And you mentioned putting your name out there, Michael, and what's interesting is that you can even search by the owner of the content. If you know that Sue is running this project, then you can just search by all the content that Sue's put up there. You can do so by actually just navigating through your folder structure as is, selecting, okay, well, I remember it was, specifically out of, this crisis and this value and, so forth, right? So you can even get a little bit more specific and span it out and then also modification and so forth. So there's a lot to make it easier for you to find this information. I mean, as I said, we've got customers mostly on the for-profit side that have close to a petabyte of data. So we got to make it
That's like
for
3
you to
really
retrieve.
big files.
Yeah,
So those-
yeah, right. Really, really, really big file.
And so if you're an editor, you can manage them.
Exactly. It all defaults back to those permission structures. And so when it came to associating documents was an interesting one I saw on the question field. I assume that was kind of just referring to how do we get a bunch of documents that may be from different places to kind of just show up when you search for them. And the answer would be through metadata. I don't know if that's directly what we were referring to. Anyone?
I think, Sue, you may have added that, but is that, I was intending that, I understood that as sort of grouping things together. And
Yeah. I don't think I added it, but I think, it's like saying there's a whole set of documents from all different corners.
Sure.
And you want to tie them together. Metadata would be one way.
So metadata is one way. We also offer what we call bookmark functionality. And it's really simple. What you do is we can generate shared links, which I'm not even going to bother with today. But in those shared links, it generates a URL that you can kind of pop into any specific folder. So you might have a specific file that Sue has access to, but Michael doesn't have access to, but Michael needs to see that single file maybe. You can put that bookmark in a folder that he does have access to. And now Michael can see that file. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So it's kind of just,
So
it's
not-
still pointed back to that one specific folder, but we're giving you that access still from a different location.
So the file itself is an access. It can be accessed from two different folders, but if it's a
Right.
bookmark, does it look different?
It looks a little different, but
the
it,
icon or something.
yeah,
so-
but it
Yeah,
still
exactly.
brings it up in the same
Yeah.
preview format and so forth.
So it's like tagging. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to preventing unauthorized use of files, I hope that the permission structure was something that kind of shows you guys that you can make it so first you can give somebody no access at all. When you create a folder, it's private to you. When when you do have somebody in the folder itself, you can give them a level of permission where they can't even edit the file. So is that good? You guys feel comfortable with that? You think? Did you guys hear that? That was good. All right, so the last piece here is retention deletion, and there's a few things that I can kind of just talk about from that. By obviously choosing from those permission structures, you can prevent people from deleting. I mentioned that there are obviously going to be cases where end users may, by mistake, just delete something. It happens. We see it all the time. So right now we're hopping into the administrative console where there's a lot to talk about from a security standpoint. But one thing to keep in mind here is that do you know if anyone here in the room would be the administrator, the super administrator of Box if we were to move forward? Is that okay?
Maybe Ryan.
Everybody? Okay, everybody can.
You
No,
can have
maybe
co-administrators.
maybe Ryan might be one.
All right, Ryan, we're looking at you for this one. The idea of being here that this is an area where you have in like complete oversight into all the files that are in Box in the entirety of your corporate instance. So you can actually search by users, kind of look at the drop down themselves, and let's say you click on this user here, you can see their entire folder structure, even hop into like private folders and whatnot to be able to have some control, take action on those files, whatever you need to do, especially if you have several systems kind of working together and maybe a file shouldn't be in Box, it should be somewhere else. So obviously that's one general means of control. This is also for e-discovery purposes, so that you can find all that content in case of any negative scenario.
Okay, I mean, one of the things that happens very frequently here is people leave Mercy Corps. So if somebody leaves Mercy Corps and has a document in this Box setup that is that he or she hasn't shared with anybody else, would Ryan be able to find that?
Yes, but we can show you in a minute how to do that even like without Ryan having to pull out his hair in the process. But when you go into the trash here, this was just to the point that you can restore users' trash. We also can configure on our end, on your end from the administrative side. And I'm so sorry that I'm moving quickly and hopping around, but want to make sure we get as much in as we can. From this perspective, and this is kind of getting to the granular weeds of the admin console, there's an area here that talks about trash. You can make it so only the admins can permanently delete it from your entire system. You can make it depending on your package, that nobody deletes it at all. You can make it so items are deleted after a certain amount of time or never deleted. So once again, that unlimited storage really comes in handy. We frankly don't care, but we want to make sure that it's safe however it's done.
Good thing the storage guys are keeping ahead of you.
Yeah, right. Right. So from a deletion standpoint, we're keeping track. We do have a retention functionality as well that's been recently built in. This helps us achieve some of like the really tough regulations in the financial space to work with big banks now. So we can put retention periods on there, and now we're kind of stepping into like an ECM tool as well.
Is there an interface for retention or anything you can just show us?
I can. I'm glad you said you were interested because I was gonna shy from it, just because of. I'm assuming everyone has a hard stop at 3, or is it fine if we go a few minutes over?
We may have a few minutes, that's what Michael's checking.
Awesome.
30 seconds.
It's all about the room.
Okay.
We have time out of the room.
Awesome. Oh, that's great. So I'll slow down how I talk.
You took us to the water.
Yeah. So this policies tab is actually, there's a lot that can be done. From an upload perspective, we can flag for specific information. Obviously, some sensitive numbers or file types in itself. From downloading, if there's a high, thinking about that same rogue employee who's leaving the company, you don't want them to start downloading everything really, really quickly and then running away with everything at once. So that's the beauty of.
We don't care so much. That's not so important to us.
Oh, really?
Most of what we do is subject to the Freedom of Information Act. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Well, so in that case, maybe. You can get notified.
I'm more concerned about destruction.
Yeah.
Rather than.
Yeah. Well, so from that perspective as well, the last piece to that policy tool is the retention capability. So we do it at a folder specific level, so that any content that you need to be retained for X amount of time. Here, I'll show you what this would look like. All right, let's do that. That specific one here is going to be saved for a retention policy. And now the next question is, how long do you want to retain it for? Do you have any thoughts of how long you'd like to retain? 7 years. It can be done. You can customize it. It brings up, that you can do it by days. You can do it by years. We've seen it. We've seen a lot of different, really interesting use cases where we thought this was initially just for the big banks, like the big banks, but we're seeing it in human resources as a main way. And I'm not familiar with the exact amount of use.
Anyone that has any legal exposure to suits.
Yeah.
So compliance.
Yeah.
Depending on your industry.
Yeah. So that's been really interesting to see as we build out this feature. Next stop on this is legal holds, which will be another interesting concept. But you'll see here after a certain amount of time, you can then determine, hey, I want this just to be waived and deleted, but we offer unlimited storage. So up to you on how you want to handle that. Or you can just now make that content available for deletion in that case. Obviously, of course, we can notify those who need to be notified upon those 7 years, being up. Now, when it comes, any questions there with the retention piece? Great. Now, back to this employee who's leaving. The best way to handle this, if a user's leaving, and assuming that maybe you're going to have some connection to some Active Directory.
We use.
Sorry?
We're not going to want to manually do this.
Yeah.
If they're out of the system, it notifies Box.
Yeah. So, sorry, and you were saying
We use FTS, open source.
Oh, interesting.
Fedora directory services. All of our internally developed apps are on Linux.
Interesting.
We have several open source projects.
Do you have,
we have Active Directory for the local area network in Portland, but for all of our global users,
okay. So
it's in SAML.
Yeah.
Use SAML.
Yeah, we need SAML. And so the thought being there, you can auto provision, deprovision licenses, so Ryan's not standing up late, just typing in users one by one. But when a user leaves, what we do is there's a few options here. We actually make that user inactive rather than deleting them. From there, the great thing is, let's say we do want to delete the user, automatically we're going to ask you to transfer that content elsewhere. So that way, when you transfer that ownership, this means that really we're just pulling a few API calls back and forth, and it means that, let's say, Brantley's leaving and Casey is next in line for the role. I want to transfer all that content over to Casey. So this way, those users that are working on the files that are owned by Brantley, there's no interruption to their usage of the product. So it becomes seamless in that manner.
But you have a deactivate state, not just delete.
Yeah.
Deactivate.
Yeah.
And then you can manage that through an API.
Yeah, and you'll see there's
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. Got it.
Now let's look back to how we're doing on this checklist here. I think we took care of everything
Yep.
that I put down, but I know we still have a greater list, and there were a few things that I hadn't been able to get to. Is that the list?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to make
Well,
sure?
we got the single sign-on.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, the single
Well, that's,
sign-ons.
that's what we just talked about.
Yeah, so
Sign-on.
we need some sort of SAML 2.0
Yeah.
service, but that's the industry standard more or less. So, and yeah, it would look as simple as it would just ask, are you part of the Mercy Corps domain? If so, click and it authenticates you.
Mhm.
Can you guys think of anything that I may have missed there?
Oh, did somebody want to see printing?
Printing.
I think it was somewhere on the list there.
Demonstrate printing options, line 29.
Printing.
And there are tools, the administrator can see tools to monitor use and traffic, right?
Oh, so yeah, show us how to look at reports or dashboards to monitor use and traffic. Actually, that's one I can really easily show you. This is also available via API if you have some sort of other tool that you'd like to throw this into. But take a look. This is all the different action types you can run reports on. So it's literally every single click that's being taking place within Box. And this is, you can do this for a user or a group. But you'll see this is kind of just an example of what we've just gone through in the last hour or so. So it's pretty, pretty substantial, and it timestamps everything as well.
What's your orientation and online help and that kind of thing?
Online what?
Help and orientation
Sure.
presentations. How did?
Yeah.
I mean, I know ideally you just sit down and do it, but
So-
if someone does have questions,
A few different options there, and we'll tell me if I'm missing anything. But that customer success manager will be in charge of doing a lot of that, finding times that work with everybody to either train groups or the entire organization, depending on what you all decide. Excuse me. We do have implementation help, consulting help, but I think one piece that, and I'm a huge evangelist for these guys, it's Box University, Box Education. I recently ran, as I mentioned, a webinar with these guys, and these are individuals that came from places like Kaplan, and so they're all passionate. Their passion is education and training, rather than, they love Box, but they love education, so it comes in really nicely to blend together to kind of create a really nice, interactive and very helpful environment.
And so does some of that just come with it, or do
Yeah.
you purchase it, or how does it?
Well, so there are implementation packages that you can purchase. So when you guys are talking about, hey, we want to move all of our Google files over, you can purchase an implementation package that includes the movement of some of those files. I think it's up to like 500 gigs, and then you can add extra gigs at a certain price. But then it does include some change management stuff. So where we will do some train the trainer type thing. So if there's a group that you want to get trained, we'll go in and train the main person who will go in and then kind of train the rest of the or the people within that part of the line of business. And we do have Box.org pricing for those implementation packages as well. So they do come at a discounted rate from the MSRP that we sell to, say, regular organizations that are not nonprofit.
I think I saw like a help and assistance, like links on the page.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
And what
right.
happens when you
another-
click there?
Yeah,
Can you
something
show us?
else that we have is our community page, which I still use on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
Where if there's any questions that you have, you can simply just type in, your question. They'll show up forums around that question, any kind of questions
That's
that
actually-
are.
It wants me to create a username right now. We'll hold off.
But so this page essentially is the community page. We specifically have a Box.org community page, which is actually I think the most well developed out of all of them. But
Forget it.
um,
Yeah, and you're right. So Brian Breckenridge has been leading the charge there, and is by far the most interactive on the
Yeah.
page. And
by far,
Yeah.
that's great.
making sure that, and he's really well connected in this space, and is making sure that all of his friends are starting to kind of hang out and join the conversation. And it's to everybody's benefit.
What about localization?
So
Probably wasn't on the list.
Oh, it's not on the list, yeah. Localization meaning, not everybody in Mercy Corps speaks English.
we support, I think it's 15 plus different languages. Now you're really testing me here.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
question. 'Cause I don't have that.
Oh, where is it? Oh, you know what? It's either in.
User settings?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Yep. You know it better than I.
Is Arabic on that list?
Chinese is, Korean is.
Does not look like Arabic is on this.
What's
Well,
wrong?
the three that are Spanish, French, and Arabic would be the three for us.
We do have a localization team that's been
Yeah.
working pretty fervently. So let's check.
I feel like it's something
During,
that-
is it Dari?
It's not too,
Oh, Darian?
Dari.
Dari.
So we can get back to you on that. I see updates from the localization team a lot. So we can get back to you there.
And that's just the user interface, right? Like
Mhm.
you pick
Yeah.
it, it doesn't
So the
help you translate
the
that.
buttons.
No, yeah, the documents in there aren't going to be translated.
that'd be great.
I've been asked that before.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or, I mean, like the box notes, you're typing in.
that though is really cool. Yeah, you can work back and forth in different languages. So yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
So we have over, counting everyone, over 4,000 people that would use the system. Would we need user licenses for all of those people, or would we need a strategy to figure out who needs licenses and who wouldn't necessarily need?
I think it would be kind of strategy around who these 4,000 people are, how much oversight you want to have on each user, and how often they're going to be accessing Box, and what type of kind of like reporting and tracking you would like to have. So I think it definitely would be more of a kind of a strategy look into it. I'm not sure exactly how Oxfam structured theirs, because they have a similar one too. I'll take a look at that and see kind of what their strategy was. But out of those 4,000 people, like, do you have an idea of,
How many are like at Mercy Corp that
Yeah.
actually have the domain, the email domain like at Mercy Corp? Is it all 4,000 or?
Eventually.
38.
We're in the process of consolidating.
Okay.
Everybody's in a subdomain
Right.
of
Okay.
mercycorps.org.
Yeah, that's
38
similar
people
to
in our
Oxfam.
account management system. 3,800.
Okay. Yeah, so we would definitely want to sit down with probably like Brian and kind of strategize around how would we want to do that for you guys. Yeah, because that's just not, saying, oh, you need to buy 4,000 licenses, which just not work for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a,
There's just no way.
well, like all organizations, it's
Yeah.
it's 5% to have 80% of the usage.
Right, exactly.
And there's
Exactly.
these,
And we
there's
take
these
those
occasional once a month, or
Exactly.
somebody that's authorized but has never signed on.
Right.
So
So
we
we
tend
can
to
definitely
tend to
work.
make our intranet and our core business systems are everybody. It's automatically when you're signed on as an employee, you get access to all this stuff, whether you need it or not.
I realized. I'm sorry that I forgot to talk a little bit about Box Embed.
Oh yeah.
I missed it. But this is just a really general version of it here. You'll see that what we've done is actually just embedded all of our content directly within here. So this is actually taking a look at my actual Box account. But you'll see in this scenario here, it's it's a smaller, it's just a workspace here. This is a greater folder that exists somewhere, and some of the subfolders that exist below it. In those scenarios here, you'll see you get still full functionality of Box. This is a super old. That's super old, but you can preview it directly within the browser and so forth. So you don't have to download it anymore.
Right.
So I might
Yeah,
have a little.
NetHope. I've seen that from NetHope's done that.
Yeah.
And you have videos there too if you want to have that kind of marketing material up, and I'll preview the video and be able to play from there too.
So thinking of our library again, like right now we put it up in a DVD quarterly, and I think what you talked about, because people do need to use it offline, they can install it on a local network. And you talked a little bit about having sort of local versions of Box if people, when we were talking about connectivity and syncing and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So if people really needed to get to an extensive part of this, is syncing enough, or is there other opportunities to have kind of like a local?
Yeah. So is the goal to just to gain access to it and have it, or is it like to just be able to download it, view it, because it's coming in DVD format, right? So it's not a collaborative environment,
No,
right?
it's just quarterly. It's the repository basically on the DVD.
No. So in that case, I'd recommend as kind of just letting them do some bulk downloading. Syncing it means I would sync it only if they needed to make changes and have it come back up, because if not, that bandwidth is going to be used. And our sync product will say, hey, has a change been made to this? Whereas if you just download it and think of it almost like an FTP, that's a really common use case for Box, is just an FTP replacement where you can actually, that's where maybe sending out a shared link would be the best thing to do here.
Yeah.
And this is something I didn't get into because of the limited time, but since we're hanging out for a moment, I'll just show you what it looks like. You can take any file and generate a link. And now what happens is these users don't need Box accounts to retrieve the information that's within it. This could be for either a file or a folder, right? So you could put 1,000 files in a folder, drop this into Gmail, and in fact, with our integration, you could just as simply go to More Actions and send with Gmail, and then it just actually generates the link and puts it in your Gmail for you. For some reason, it seems like Google's moving a little. Yeah. So and then then you can send that out, and boom, that's
Probably our wireless.
Oh, so what was put in there was a link, not an attachment.
Exactly.
exactly. So now there's no limitation on a 25 megabyte limitation on the file size. You can now track this. And then there's also additional control that we're doing on our end where you can make it so only people with the Mercy Corp domain can access it. You can set password requirements or even expire the link after a certain amount of time. So a lot of power comes in this scenario. The United Nations Foundation is using this type of use case heavily for getting images and videos to media partners, just because they don't want them coming into their Box account or doing anything like that, but they need to be able to get the information.
You can do it on a folder level too, so you can, what it should do is showing a file level, but you can also just share the folder, link to the folder, and then you can access all the files in the folder.
If you can connect.
Yes.
And then
Got it.
from an admin perspective, is there a way to see active links and cancel them?
Yes, there is. And then also another interesting piece is that from the end user perspective, there's access statistics associated with it. So this is a visibility tool, which means it's a security tool. But we see end users loving this because it really doesn't matter your role, whether you're kind of in just a collaborative environment and people are all over the place, and you want to see who's accessing information and when, who's downloaded that DVD that you've sent out your way, or even from a sales perspective, we think of that as when is it appropriate to follow up with our customers, right? So there's a lot of just value you can get from having an idea of when people are looking at the information you're sending out. So but the shared link piece is actually one of the 60 plus actions you can run those reports for within the admin console.
Okay. Good job.
Thank you. No, is there anything else that we missed?
Oh, I'm sure there are, but
One by one, we'll chip at it.
Yeah, it's Nate's direct email, so.
I'm Nate at Box.
I guess I could quickly ask, we had kind of an introduction and closing, are there any imminent new features that we haven't even thought of that you guys have that would just be so cool, or something that you think sets, again, we've gone over a lot of stuff, so there might not be another answer, but sets
Yeah,
Box
yeah.
apart, or is particularly cool.
If Stream would be something that they would be,
That would
That's
be.
what I was
Box, or
thinking.
Box Desktop as we're calling it, which is a product that's probably coming out early next year.
Yeah.
But it's going to kind of take the sync, what you guys have seen here with the selective sync, and then also your entire web infrastructure. It's going to show it as a virtual drive on your computer when you're connected to the internet. So you can actually click that and then click one of the files, and it will render it within the web browser with you logging in. So it gives people that functionality of oh, I know this process because it's on my desktop, but it still keeps the whole web thing. It keeps the experience of going through the web and all of the collaboration around as well. But you can do the selective sync on that, or you will be able to do the selective sync on that to be able to say these are the ones that will be offline when I'm not connected.
Yeah. This is something else right here. This is just our HD video preview. And this is coming out also around the same time. It's just a really nice format. Once again, you're not having to download these big files and whatnot. You can share them out as a link. So you're just accessing them really easily. And we have a video preview that's there today. This is just, we work with Disney, Pixar, and some really big media, Lionsgate, all these big media and entertainment companies that need videos at the center of everything they're doing, so they need it to be a little bit better.
And that could even be a possibility for the DVD that you
That's right.
send out, where you can say, hey, here's the link to our quarterly DVD. They can go and just view it right within Box. So it's not downloading anything, but it would require that bandwidth for them to obviously view.
That's hard.
Right.
And
Some areas
then
that
there's
would
one other
work,
thing. Now, so in I guess the most of the other announcements that came out are really security focused and kind of us stepping into the enterprise content management space. Would watermarking be anything of interest to you all? Being able to have the user's name, email address, time of access, all like across some of these documents that are being shared, so that
It's not common.
yeah. I mean, so
There's a little of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of those
Maybe a
security.
classic draft.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not.
A lot of additional security features as we focus heavily in regulated industries that
Yeah.
I think are probably more helpful in those cases.
Yeah.
But from the collaborative standpoint, I think the stream piece is going to change the way we do business, because I would say our biggest competitors is just customer inertia and changing the way they work, as I'm sure you're all familiar with, as well, and moving off of these legacy solutions that are in place today. So that's really where I see the hardest work that I have to do when I'm having these conversations with potential customers. Is it's not saying like, oh, are we better than XYZ? It's how do we make this actually work? And so hopefully we have enough services on both the front and post sales side that can help you out through that process.
Where do you view your competitive advantage?
I mean, I think that I love that you asked me that, because I was talking about how this is my favorite slide. This is my second favorite slide. The value of what we're giving you is actually these little things here. So we've built our product in a way in which, as I said, I'll start saying the word platform a good amount. But because we created our product in an agile way where pretty much everything you saw today is available as an open API endpoint, it really lets you fit Box into the way that you already do business. And content is going to be core to everybody's day-to-day business, and people just don't think about it the same way we do. But in the long run, you can connect, to third-party integrations and other enterprise tools as we move to this best-of-breed mentality in the cloud. You can create custom applications, and I'm working with some nonprofits to do just that. You can, have this foundation of security, conversion of documents, and the search and acceleration of files. These are all services that we've built out for the past 10 years.
When you say acceleration,
Thinking of those files being accelerated from wherever you are in the globe.
okay.
This is all technology this is our foundation that we've been working on for 10 plus years. And there's nobody else who's kind of focused on such a core thing, especially focused on the enterprise. So because we built it in this way.
What's an example of a custom app?
Oh, great question.
Just an example.
Yeah, so Team Rubicon is one that we're working with to extend, create a portal for volunteers to get access to their files in a few different ways. One is kind of doing it in a smart programmatic way, so that if you are living in the South Carolina area and you're brought into a mission because there's a flood in South Carolina, automatically we push out information to a specific folder in Box, but the user doesn't see it that way. Brings out specific information to that user related to their mission. So kind of tying in a lot of different things like geolocation and a lot of different pieces to it. But we've worked our platform into a way where users can log into your application, whatever that may be, and they never have to know they're using Box. They don't even need to have a username. They don't need to have a password from Box. And this would all be handled by your identity management. But on the back end, we create IDs for everybody, so you can administrate them, run reports the same way that you're doing with your managed users. And that's where our business is going to go.
The content is serviced.
Content is served,
through
yeah,
that app.
exactly. So
And that's a huge differentiator, because Team Rubicon came for one specific reason, which was mobile access for their team, and now they're expanding and building off of Box and going through our app platform. So yeah, it's more of our scalability is what really I think differentiates us from like Dropbox or Google.
Should. you been able to snare the UN?
Just the
United
foundation,
Nations
United Nations Foundation.
Foundation.
No,
Yeah.
we are working with like some government entities, like the Department of Justice is using Box for
Yeah.
some file transfer. I don't think it's a full deployment, like a server replacement or anything like that, but
For they
You
came
know.
specifically for the security purposes and the control piece. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Past time, way past time.
yeah.
Did it. Yeah, we can send over more like white papers around Box.org, some use cases that different nonprofits that are using us, just so you guys can take a look at that and reference too.
Great.
Yeah, he's probably got a few follow-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and just, what you just recorded would be great if we could get that, and then I can share it out to, the people in the field that we're connecting with, because we're trying to make sure that the decision process that we're engaged in now is one that, as much as possible, is driven from the field, because that's where most of our people are.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we need to be addressing the issues that they're facing and making their work lives easier.
Thank you, everybody.